All right. Good evening, everyone. It is 4:36 p.m. on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. I'm going to open the meeting for the Dartmouth Board of Health with a roll call. So Emily Michelle Olmsted, Chair, is present. Susan Murray, present. Excellent. So as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. If you haven't been to at least one of the Dartmouth Board of Health meetings before, as the chair, we try and keep order. So I request that you raise your hand before speaking. I'm going to give my best to give everyone a chance to speak. All right, going based on the agenda, we're going to go with the first item, which is approve and accept the warrants for the bills payable, period ending October 20th through November 15th, 2025. Chris, do you want to speak on any of this? Otherwise,
they're all just customary bills.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So as the chair, I didn't have an issue with any of them that were noted. So I would, the motion would be to approve the warrants. Is that correct? Okay. Susan Murray, I turn to you. Do you have any notes, questions, comments about the warrants for bills?
I do not.
Okay, excellent. So I have where'd my notes go? Here we go. So finding that these are standard items, I move to accept the warrants for the bills payable period ending October 20th through November 15th, 2025. Can I get a second?
Second.
Excellent. All right, now we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? All right, the ayes have it. The motion passes. All right, the next item, which is approve and accept the minutes from October 20th, 2025. I did not see anything. I didn't have any issues or corrections with the minutes. Susan Murray, did you?
No, I did not.
All right. So finding no issues or corrections, I move to approve and accept the Dartmouth Board of Health meeting minutes from October 20th, 2025. Can I get a second?
A second.
All right, now we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Excellent. All right, Section I, appointment, 432. We are a bit late. Thank you for bearing with us. Okay, so we are with Jamie Bissonette, PE, from Zenith Consulting Engineers, Plat 23, Lot 48-2 at 80 Horseneck Road in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. A variance request from 310 CMR 15 of Title V, which the variance is 15.211, which requires that the soil absorption system be at least 10 feet from the property line. A reduction from 10 feet to 5 feet is requested in accordance with 310 CMR 15.410 and 310 CMR 15.411. In this case, I'm going to go to the applicant first, or the engineer, whoever is, speaking on behalf of them. Please identify yourself for the record.
Jamie Bissonette with Zenith Consulting Engineers.
Thank you.
Do you guys want me over at the podium with this, or is here fine?
There's a microphone. Yeah, the microphone would be great. Thank you so much.
All right, again, Jamie Bissonette, Zenith Consulting Engineers for the record. We have a variance for a setback to a property line from a soil absorption system in front of you tonight. It is new construction, so it is a variance. We submitted a packet demonstrating or outlining why we believe that the variance should be approved, and items that we've done to get us either further in compliance that's typically needed. Let me step back and just talk a little bit about the project. We've gone through with conservation, had the resource areas delineated and approved, did the existing conditions survey. I think there's been 2 rounds of perk tests done out on site. Beautiful sands and gravels. Water table is very low. We're on a nice hill of sand. That being said, because of the setbacks under the Dartmouth regulations, they're a little bit more stringent than Title V. That's requiring the variance due to the 100-foot setback, I believe, to the resource area over in here. It's pushing us back over in this area here, up. So in looking at it and trying to find out what was most feasible, Title V talks about how when you're doing a true variance, you need to find something that's going to be environmentally equivalent in protection. So a setback to the front property line, the right-of-way between the road and the leaching field, doesn't have any environmental benefit to it. It's just it's a setback. It's not a setback to a well or a resource. So we felt that the request going to the front property line setback as opposed to closer to a resource area or closer to any other item or reducing the size of the system under a variance, this would be the most environmentally positive thing to do. On top of that, what we've done is we've introduced a denitrification system being in Aranco AX20. It's in mode 3B. I believe you're very familiar with advanced treatment, if I remember correctly. So that does denitrification. It's fantastic for TSS removal and treatment altogether. It's probably my favorite advanced treatment for residential use. And the system itself will meet the setbacks. It's the reserve area that we actually need the 5-foot reduction to. So that's really about it. Part of the justification also talks about trying to show that we would, that it would be manifestly unjust. Well, it's a beautiful lot. It's a lot that we'd like to be able to build on. Without being able to fit a septic system, we have a non-buildable lot. So getting relief from that for the 5-foot reduction is what we're asking for. So we believe denial of which would be manifestly unjust. So that's about it, but I'm happy to try to go over concerns or questions that you may have.
Thank you. Chris, can I turn it over to you for your notes, please?
Sure. So oftentimes, the public looks at regulations as singularly restricting on the public. However, there are instances in many regulations where the regulations also govern the actions of government. So in the cases of an application under the terms of 310 CMR 1500 for a variance, we have to refer to 310 CMR 410, standard review of variances. And in paragraph 1, it states that variances shall be granted only when, in the opinion of the approving authority, 2 terms are met. The first, as Mr. Bissonnette said, is about the manifest injustice. The second becomes the demonstration that there's an equal level of environmental protection and public health protection. However, to get to the second really requires you to get by the first. So we would have to, the board has to consider, what is manifest injustice? What uses of the lot become manifest injustice, or is it all use of the lot being deprived of manifest injustice? So this is a 3-bedroom design. The code does allow under section 203 for smaller designs, even though, market rate might be for, bigger homes. The code does have a provision in there for the 2-bedroom. And, that becomes a discussion of the board to decide, on that, whether or not it's a manifest injustice.
Thank you.
And whether or not, can the lot support a 2-bedroom without relief from the code, or would the same level of relief be required?
Certainly.
We do have, is that all, you done for now, Chris? Thank you. We do have town council here. Brian Cruz, would you be able to speak on this matter, please?
Certainly. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Can you guys hear me? I am on my headphones. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
thank you.
Okay, great. So as Chris said, there's a lot of discretion involved in the variance standard under Title V. There's some balancing factors for you to weigh. There are some limitations for you as well. What I can say is, from a case law perspective, I'm very comfortable if the board wants to stand on the position that absent a demonstration that a two-bedroom can't fit on the property, there is no manifest injustice. Manifest injustice is essentially, you are inhibiting their ability to use the property for any reasonable purpose. And that they don't get the number of bedrooms they want is not a manifest injustice. That's, no different than that. Even if they were complying with all the regulations, if the system can't meet their desire for a 5-bedroom house, then they don't get a 5-bedroom house. But the bottom line is, it's impossible for the board to know whether the variance standard has been met, discretion or not, without knowing whether or not they would need a variance anyway for a 2-bedroom house. You guys really can't do your evaluation in the absence of that information, is what I would say. And how you come about whether or not you think a variance, they'd be entitled to one anyway, that's a discretionary determination that is ultimately in your court. What I will say is I don't see how you can even get to that determination in the absence of all the information about what's possible on the site. And right now, you guys don't know whether or not a 2-bedroom is even possible, so you can't weigh that in your determination of variance.
I can tell you a 2-bedroom is possible.
Thank you. Okay, so did you explore a 2-bedroom design?
We did, yes.
Okay.
Yep, a 2-bedroom will fit. We can meet the setbacks for it.
Without any variances?
Yeah, without the variance, that we're asking
okay,
for the
sure.
one, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, again, the 3-bedroom is preferred. We have a large site and, that's what we're asking for. But yes, we can fit the 2-bedroom if need be.
Okay. Normally, I like to go to the audience, or, see who else is here to speak on it. I do just want to make sure. So septic stuff is kind of my forte. I absolutely understand. Are you following along? Does this all make sense?
Yeah, I'm gonna have some questions, but I'm not there yet.
Sure.
If we wanna, continue the conversation so I can form my questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is possible, Chris, since the engineer has stated that, that he could design it for 2 bedrooms without any variances. Understandably, that's not the first choice, but that could be done. Then we as a board could, I suppose, what would our options be? We would table it or, deny it? Could you provide a little bit of guidance on that? Because again, if that gets to the heart of the problem, that if he can design something without a variance, that puts us in a wholly different situation, correct?
So, yeah, I'll answer this in 2 parts. So
Sure.
the first thing is that, as, I mentioned earlier, and I believe Attorney Cruz had mentioned, Mass DEP did put limitations on a Board of Health. The code calls it the approving authority in the consideration of a variance. And it requires the local Board of Health to determine that there is a manifest injustice, and then to also determine that the design is equally environmentally protective and equally protective of public health. So, we first have to get by the manifest injustice. And it sounds as though that there's some discussion that there is use of this property in full compliance.
We can fit a 2-bedroom on there, correct?
And Madam Chair, if I could
Go ahead.
add,
Yep.
the important factor in this case is it's a new construction. So there is a secondary consideration under the variance standard under Title V, which is that if it's a new construction, the only way you can demonstrate manifest injustice is if the lack of the variance will deprive the property of substantially all beneficial use. So that's the only way they could show manifest injustice, is if no variance means substantially all beneficial use of the property is eliminated, which is why my concern was about whether or not they could do a 2-bedroom. Because it's my feeling, it just, as a matter of case law, that if they can do a 2-bedroom as opposed to the 3 they prefer, they cannot demonstrate that substantially all beneficial use of the property would be eliminated in the absence of the variance. And so that's a secondary standard that Title V imposes on you. So that you'll have to make that consideration as well as, how do you view this in terms of whether they can use the property for any substantial purpose at this point. So please keep that in mind as well.
I think I'm a bit confused. I believe I understand the two sections in Title V, and yes, with new construction, we have to be very careful as a board. But if the engineer is saying that he could change the design, would that not essentially end this conversation? Because then if he could then design something that could then, which we wouldn't see before us tonight, we would then, there wouldn't be any variances, and so he would, if he could comply with everything in Title V for new construction, if he could do that.
Yeah,
What am I missing?
Yeah, let me rephrase that. So, right now, we have an application for a subsurface sewage disposal construction permit before the Dartmouth Board of Health.
Yes.
There's a requirement, there's a statutory requirement of 45-day action on any application for subsurface sewage disposal construction permit. And Title V does have a provision, whereas that 45 days stop upon the public notice.
Okay.
So the board does have to act on this.
Okay.
However, what Title V is deficient on is whether or not a revision to this plan for 2 bedrooms would need to be a separate application. And the reason why I'm asking this is that if the board doesn't, and this is a question for Attorney Cruz, would a 2-bedroom revision, could that be included in this, since we're looking at this as a variance application, even though that would be full compliance? Or would the board need to act on this application, and that would have to come in as a separate application?
So I guess there's 2 ways to play it. They could withdraw the application and submit a new one for a 2-bedroom. Alternatively, I suppose you could approve it with the condition that it only be 2 bedrooms. But it's kind of hard for me to see the purpose of that, because then you would be granting them the setback variance. So as it's a variance application, I don't see how you can approve anything that doesn't grant them the variance in some way. So if you don't want the variance, you don't think it meets the standard, the options are to deny it and have them file a new application, or them simply withdraw it and file a new application. But even if they brought a new plan in for a 2-bedroom, it's still technically a variance application at that point. So if the idea is for that, it'd be one thing if they were, if it was, hey, we're going to need a variance no matter what, but we could redesign for 2 bedrooms and make it less adversive, and we can do that as part of this application. But if the idea is they don't need a variance at all for 2 bedrooms, and you want to see that instead, that's a new application. I don't see how you can effectuate that under the current application.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So the reason that we need to make the request for the variance from the state regulation from 10 to 5 feet is because of the local Board of Health regulation going from 50 feet to 100. Would the process be easier asking for the variance from the state component of the setback to the resource from 100 to less than 100 and maintain the state requirement of 10 feet? Oh, so, for example, over here, we have a 100-foot buffer zone to the resource here. So we're maintaining the setback to that. But that's a town requirement under Title V, not a state. A state is the 50-foot requirement, which is further back. We probably would need 5 to 10 feet into that. But the town has doubled the state's requirement for setback in that area. So what we did was we were looking at the area that would maintain the biggest separation to resources, thinking that a setback to a property line would be the least environmentally impactful. But if it would be easier for process-wise for us to ask for a waiver from the local regulation, then we'd be happy to revise the plan and do such.
I see what you're asking. At this point, there's a lot on the table to talk about. I want to jump back to that. I do want to open it up because we do have some other folks in the audience here. So if anyone would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm seeing some shaking heads. No, okay. So, okay, so that, and it is, then can I bounce to you, Chris, on that question? Because it's still new construction. I see his point. Instead of asking for a state variance, we're looking for from a local regulation. Thoughts on that?
We are still bound by the terms of those sections that have been discussed earlier about standards of review.
Okay, all right. I understand. We still have to deal with what is in front of us before we
manifest
even
justice.
think about
And-
where we go from there. Okay, I understand.
And if I could add,
Yes,
Madam
please.
Chair,
Go
just
ahead.
for clarification, there really is no, from a administrative perspective and a variance application perspective, there is no distinction between the Title V state regs and the local supplementals. The local supplementals are fully integrated into Title V for all purposes, including whether they're entitled to a variance, how they apply for a variance. So it's not like there would be a less stringent standard. They would simply be asking for a different variance, but you'd be looking at the exact same way.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let me just try and mull this all out and put this into the way I understand it as well. If only sometimes that's how I like to process. So we have before us, we have to act on this in front of us. So the fact that the engineer may be able to do this as a two-bedroom design later, that would have to be treated as a completely different, application, essentially. So we as a board, we are bound by Title V. And so even if we, as people have some sort of opinion, we have to act per Title V as the Board of Health. And so the two things that have to be proven are manifestly unjust, which means that if we said no to this, they couldn't use the property at all, which I do not believe is the case from everything I've heard tonight. And then the second part of it, if we decided that one was irrelevant, we would then have to make sure that it's environmentally protective to an equal degree. Since we're not going to get there and we're not meeting manifest injustice, again, according to what I understand from Chris and what I understand from town council, we are not there. We cannot approve this as a board. It's we could, as an option, Chris, we could. If we wanted to ask for more information, if we wanted to not chase manifest injustice, but if we wanted to make sure that there wasn't another system that could fit on the property, correct?
Ordinarily, in a situation like this, we may look to try, if Mr. Bissonette hadn't offered up the information about the ability to site a two-bedroom, we would go down the 53G route where we would, I would, advise the board to retain a independent consultant and to, run it to see if it could support that lower in demonstration of that manifest, depriving of all beneficial use. So it's kind of unique because, Mr. Bissonette has, advised us that. So I guess, is that enough evidence for the board, to take action on it if they so choose, on the proving or disproving of manifest injustice and depriving of all beneficial use of the property.
Okay.
Do you have anything you need to add, Dave?
All right, I'm going to ask my fellow member to speak, and just as a reminder too, we do want to make sure we can hear everybody. So, Susan Murray, do you have questions, comments? Where are you thinking with this?
I'm just really curious to now that I better understand the concept of manifest injustice, why again do you believe, knowing that, hearing what the council said and knowing that a two-bedroom could fit on this, what is your take on this and why it should be seen as manifest injustice?
There's, from town to town and from health department to health department, there's different interpretations in Title V. The one that sticks out to me mostly is the minimum design flow requirements in Title V. There's towns that will not allow two bedrooms for new construction. They want 330. They believe even with the deed restriction that's intended for repairs on substandard lots or something along those lines. When we looked at this, we had discussion, you know, about coming in and asking for this as the process which we've done. And we felt that we had a pretty good case for this to be a 3-bedroom and to hold a 3-bedroom for new construction. So that, essentially, that was the thought process, is coming in, meeting the minimum 330, which I know there is a caveat that says if you provide a deed restriction for 2 bedrooms, some towns don't give that to you by default. So that was the thought process. What we would like to do, if possible, because we would like to, I have not showed my client, nor have I showed the Dartmouth Board of Health, the 2-bedroom design. So if we could hold off on closing the hearing tonight and allow me to submit, just to make sure that they don't see any issue with the 2-bedroom meeting all the standards before we say that it cannot work. So that we don't close out the door on the manifestly unjust part of things.
If I'm understanding your request correctly, you are asking us to table this until you have spoken to your client, gone through the notion of figuring out about the 2-bedroom, and then it would keep this open and not have us deny it tonight. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. I would like to just make sure before we determine it's definitely not manifestly unjust that somebody's eyes besides mine look at it. And like, I'd like to show Chris or Ariel, make sure that they look at it and say, yeah, you're missing this, or there's a flaw here. You can't make this work. So if the board would be so kind.
I do see a hand. Can you come up and identify yourself, please? Thank you.
David Silvera, 34 Slocum Farm Drive. I'm the applicant. So I want to put it out there. The original intention with this submittal was to build a 4-bedroom house. That was the original goal. So, you know, realistically, that's not in the application here, but that was the, you know, idea when, you know, putting this lot under agreement to build our home. So reducing it down to 3 is making an exception. I know it doesn't make a difference with the rules, but, you know, going to a 2-bedroom house is definitely not ideal, you know, in this scenario. You know, that's where I'm coming from. And, you know, the difficult part here is because this house would pass statewide, right? So it's like we're in this town, the rules are specific to this item, are restricting this from happening, which is, that alone is unjust on its own. And secondly, you know, you know, this system is ending up because of all the other regulations around it, you know, riverfront, riparian, wetlands, where the lot, I mean, it's a 2-acre lot, but there's literally only a small little sliver to build on. So if, you know, realistically, you know, we've put this thing into a corner where it can't go anywhere else. You know, so it just kind of is what it is. You know, Jamie's done a great job at, you know, making this happen. And like the idea of pushing it to a safer, more, as he refers to as positive zone versus going towards, you know, 5 feet or 10 feet in the other direction is I really don't know where else to go with this at this point. So, but yeah, that's it. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's let Susan Murray. Do you have more questions, comments, thoughts?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 2.
Write down my thought.
One is intent, and so I, you know, just curious if it was, like, did the person building the house, did they buy it and then seek out, I want to build a 4-bedroom, or was this bought by a developer and then brought in a buyer? And whoever, I guess, owns the land, did they do the due diligence to look at what you could build on this land using town regulations?
Do you
I know
want
that.
me to answer? So he's the buyer, but he has not purchased it yet. It's under agreement. He's also the builder building it for himself. It's
Okay.
gonna be for his house. And he's doing the due diligence because that was so he's in the due diligence phase right now.
And then the second one, let me see if I can remember this. I guess I'm not fully understanding the difference between the state regulations and the town regulations, how they interact and what that mandates for us. Because council said that there's essentially no difference, but there is a difference, and I'm just not understanding the differences between the state and the town
From-
regulations.
Hold on one sec. I'm going to have Brian Cruz speak first,
Sure.
please. Thank you.
Sure. Chris can speak to the technical details. What I'll say is for clarification purposes, from your perspective of how a variance would be obtained, there's no procedural difference whether it's the local regs or the state regs, because when you pass local supplemental regulations for enforcement and administrative purposes, they are integrated into Title V. So they are the same in that respect, but they are more restrictive for our local purposes in terms of their substantive obligations. And that's what Chris can speak to.
So they're more restrictive. The 100-foot setback has been a long-standing setback, predates my time. I'd say it probably even goes into the 1980s. And discussions on justification for the setback have always been focused on, one, public health, two, this is the only aspect of regulations that we have a hand in that are protective of the environment. So when we're looking at protection of public health, primarily we're looking at wells. It's a saltwater wetland around it, but we do have bathing waters down gradient of it. We do have waters that are down gradient that have potential for shellfish harvesting, and some just outside of the mouth that have open designation by Division of Marine Fisheries. So that's the environmental, that's the public health side of it. On the environmental side of it, we have a lot of attention had a lot of attention a few years ago on the Slocum River, and many years before that, where there was a study on the Slocum River as part of the Mass Estuaries Project, and that resulted in the Slocum River TMDL that was approved by DEP around 2019 or 2020, and it designated the Slocum River as being impaired for total nitrogen. And right now, we're trying to duplicate those results. It's going to take a 3-year round, but, if I had to say, we've completed our first year, and I don't think, the results are going to show that we've had marked improvement. The more we continue to develop the watershed, the more nitrogen that we add to it. So this becomes the other side of why we have the 100-foot setback, is to protect the environment. And we know that the Slocum River, as so far most of our major watersheds in Dartmouth are impaired by nitrogen, the Westport River being the second one.
Can I interrupt your train of questions for something that, I understand the intent of Title V, and this, maybe this hasn't been clearly said. New construction, building new houses or adding a bedroom is treated very differently than houses that already exist and their system is failing and they need to put a new system. It applies to everyone, that if you need to build a house on a lot that hasn't had one before, you have to meet all of the requirements in the code, which again, as I'm understanding from Chris and Brian, includes our supplemental regulations because we can go more stringent. So everyone, regardless of intent, if they're building a new house, has to meet everything in there. And if they don't meet the requirements, then essentially they have to prove, okay, well, us saying no to anything is manifestly unjust, a legal term, and that has to be, again, we haven't gotten to this part really, but same environmental protection. So, and then I've heard DEP at seminars say, you could theoretically have like a bird watching station on a lot, and then that would be a beneficial use to the property. So I wanted to make that clarification because, I absolutely have sympathy for what people want and what people want for when they buy houses, but that's literally, that's in the definition of Title V. So that's what I think we have to keep in mind as a board, what we have to consider regardless of intent when buying, I suppose. Then I interrupted you. I want to keep you going.
No, I got all my answers.
Okay. As far as tabling, so normally I don't have an issue with tabling. I at this moment, understanding, so Brian was kind enough to come on tonight and, we're here in the discussion. I don't think that we are at the point of having heard anything for a manifest injustice, so that tabling is just gonna kind of kick this down the road and prolong it. I don't really see a benefit of keeping it open as opposed to denying it and then having them reapply for the 2-bedroom. But I see you're kind of, it looks like you have a thinking face on. What would be the drawbacks if we as a board were to deny this tonight based on the findings of not meeting the criteria for manifest injustice? Or if we didn't do if we didn't do a denial, is there anything else you would recommend to us as a board to do, even if then the applicant maybe withdrew their application? Does my question make sense?
It does. And, I know with some decisions by public bodies, a denial can carry a lot of weight, like a Board of Appeals decision. So, I understand what Mr. Bissonnette is saying, that before they withdraw, he wants to, fully put it on paper, have something tangible to look at.
Yes.
So is there anything, so I would have a question for Attorney Cruz, because again, Title V has some deficiencies in it when it talks to administrative procedures. If the board was to act on a 3-bedroom variance application tonight and by denial, would that prevent them from resubmitting the same plan within a few weeks or a few days, unlike that with, like, the Board of Appeals?
Brian, I don't know if you know this. You are currently on mute, and then we can't see your mouth, so I can't tell if you're moving or speaking.
Thank you. Appreciate it. They would have an obligation, if they didn't like the denial, to appeal it. And beyond that, I'm not going to speak to the details on in a public forum, because that would be discussing what is essentially litigation strategy. So what I would say is, it's my position that if they don't like the denial of the variance, that they have to appeal it. That being said, you have 45 days from the receipt of the application to avoid a constructive approval. I don't know when the application came in. If you are, what I will say is this. Right now, you have, for your evidence of lack of manifest injustice, you have the verbal statement of the engineer that they could do a 2-bedroom, with the caveat that he wants to make certain of that in consultation with Chris. So you don't have your own independent analysis of that. And the only assertions being made by the applicant, but he definitely caveated it after the fact. So I don't think there's anything wrong with continuing this within those 45 days to get certainty between the engineer and Chris that in fact a 2-bedroom is possible. And then there's no dispute that would be grounds for an appeal later. If we were up against the gun on the 45 days, I would say, yeah, but Chris, I'm assuming that this would go to another date, or no?
So, yeah, I think by the time the board will reconvene, unless they were to call a special meeting, we would be beyond the 45 days from
You would,
the
okay.
application being complete. Title V
Okay.
does has a provision in it. It says that the application is not complete until a butter notice is sent.
And when did that happen?
Do you have the file?
It's about 11 days ago, wasn't it? 10, 12 days
These
ago?
are them, right?
November 3rd.
Okay. So then you would have time. Are you guys meeting monthly or semi-monthly?
Wednesday,
Chris?
December 17th is our next meeting as scheduled.
Okay. Yeah. So you'd have to. That be. that's cutting it close. If you were going to do this, I would say have another meeting in 2 weeks.
So if I'm understanding you, Brian, if we were to decide to table this, we would need to
Yeah.
meet again before our next meeting, correct?
Yeah, I would meet in 2 weeks, and to give them time. And again, the reason why, you're not required to, but the reason if I would see it as beneficial is that there is a concrete analysis of the two-bedroom possibility as opposed to just a statement that was made at the public hearing without anything behind it, that the engineer has already somewhat walked back by saying he's pretty sure, or, he wants to confirm it. I don't think there's any harm, since you guys have the time for it, to get more certainty on that, if that's what you're going to base your decision off of.
Okay, and the action we could, I'm sorry, were you finished? I just want to
Yeah, go ahead.
clarify.
Oh, go ahead.
The action
Yep.
we could take is table it for 2 weeks, which would give the engineer time to come back, having tested it out, and if that, tested out a two-bedroom design. And if at that point we had different information, we would act on it then.
Yeah, at that point,
Let me rephrase my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The engineer coming back to us as the person who would giving him the chance to redo the design would potentially be the evidence that we
yeah. So I am, as I'm thinking about this, I'm more and more concerned because I don't want you guys put in a position where we're coming up on the deadline. It's 2 weeks later, and the engineer has actually said, "Actually, no, I don't think a two-bedroom is possible," and they're basically walking back everything that was stated today. So, in my mind, honestly, what it would be is if either the applicant is acknowledging today unequivocally that a two-bedroom is possible, and that's it, or alternatively, I think there needs to be if they want certainty of whether a two-bedroom is possible before this gets withdrawn, then I would say they need to actually provide 53G money for a third-party consultant to do it. And then you would get that data for the continued hearing in 2 weeks. Because I don't want you being in a position where you're relying upon the applicant's engineer for confirmation that then they don't provide you. Mm-hmm. And then you're kind of stuck because you don't have your own analysis at that point. So that's I feel like there's a little bit of you're kind of stuck here because on the one hand you're trying to rely upon them because they made a statement, but on the other hand that statement can be withdrawn. And if they want the certainty of knowing that a two-bedroom would pass muster and they wouldn't have a problem with that, then it feels to me almost like you guys should just go ahead and get your third-party consultant to do that. And then everyone knows for certain, and you guys can proceed accordingly. That's my off-the-cuff advice at this point, I think.
So if I'm understanding, sorry, I like to clarify and put my
Sure.
own words.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if we are concerned about the question of manifest injustice, then what we can do as a board is require a third-party consultant instead of going down the route of tabling, so that way we don't force force ourselves into a corner. Is that correct, Brian? Is that what you were saying? Is that a possibility for us? Yeah.
If you're going to not make a decision today, because you want more certainty about whether or not a two-bedroom is or is not possible without a variance, I don't think it should be simply relying upon the applicant's engineer and Chris to figure that out.
Okay.
Because what if they disagree?
Sure.
Then you don't have any definitive evidence. You're basically in an argument and you've wasted 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I think it should simply be, and plus that then you're in a weird situation where it's almost like the applicant's presenting a new application without actually presenting a new application. So I almost feel like, almost like Chris said at the beginning, it makes sense to have a third-party consultant funded by the applicant for confirmation of whether a two-bedroom is possible. And that will provide the definitive information that you need. It's at that point, it's your consultant. You're not relying upon the applicant. You're getting information separately, and you can take the information and make a decision accordingly.
Okay. Do you want to speak on that before I do see a hand raised?
Yeah, so, again, this is, the board does have some limitations put on it. Mass DEP has regulated the board, as well as the legislature, with the 45 days. This is a complex application, and because it's a variance, and we have to go through those two parts. The board has to, DEP is requiring the board on those two parts. The manifest injustice, and is it protective of public health and the environment? And to get to part two, you gotta get to part one. There is a component in this plan that we have not discussed yet. And that is the 4 feet of naturally occurring pervious material. They demonstrated that 4 feet of naturally occurring pervious material exists on this lot. The lot has some very steep and dramatic grades to it. And with its pre-development conditions, they've demonstrated that. But in order to kind of develop the site and work in that small area outside of, or limited incursion into buffer zones with all of the development with, the driveway, the house, the grading to flatten or scalp the top of that hill, is requiring the loss of some of that naturally occurring pervious material. So there is a note on this plan that requests approval conditioned upon demonstration of 4 feet of naturally occurring material after approval. Am I correct?
I would have to see.
Somewhere around here, because the cut depth is,
I see what you're saying right there.
yeah, the bottom of excavation,
19, but we've got down to,
you're down to elevation, well, we gotta get into which test pit we're at.
yeah. Yeah, because we dug 11 feet, 10 feet
Right.
plus on each one.
So,
Sure, thank
if you're
you.
cutting down to 20, you've got a 25 here, and test pit, the numbers are,
That looks like test pit A.
so test pit A is 29.5, and we're going down to 25.5, 25 with the grade there, which would be at least a 4-foot cut.
Yep.
So maybe that doesn't exist then. No, yeah, so you have a note, note in the soil logs, engineer proposing. Ariel, that note in the soil logs, was that in the forms or here?
It is on the plan. I
It's
see
on
it-
the plan?
I see it right here.
Okay.
19.
So where I'm going at this is with that note on the plan and the crowding of the grades and showing so much detail within probably, what, a 1 in 30 scale?
Yep.
It seems as though that the designer has some uncertainty with all the cutting, if whether or not 4 feet exists,
Okay,
after they remove 4 feet of that hill.
Sure.
Potentially more.
Yep.
With the test pits that we did in the pre-development conditions. So that might be something that we need to look at further. And then if that is the case, where there isn't 4 feet of material in 2 weeks, then that is something that, for new construction, under the terms, and I think it might be section 415, conditions under which no variance may be granted, 415 or 414, the board can only approve a plan when 4 feet of material exists, naturally occurring.
Correct.
For new
Yes,
construction.
for new construction.
New
Yep.
construction. That is, so we're completely limited. So at this time, with that uncertainty on this plan,
Yeah,
we would need more detail just in and of itself. 4
Okay.
bedroom, 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms.
understood. Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah.
And so-
we can adjust for that. And, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, but this also kind of helps with the clock as well, doesn't it? Because it's looking for revisions, which is, starts the 45 days
Well,
old.
I would
doesn't it?
say that if you don't give us anything in 2 weeks, and you don't have 4 feet of material, that in and of itself, but there's some uncertainty that I have with that because I can't tell by the grades on here, there's just so
I
much
can,
going on.
I can do a zoom in view and make it very clear. And if we have to make adjustments, we can. So, because we're pumping the system anyways, so. But I understand. The intention on our end, just so you know, is for us to see if the 2-bedroom system works, because I think it's pretty obvious to us that it's gonna be a denial unless we can show the manifest unjust. And the manifest unjust, you're saying if we can fit a 2-bedroom without variances, seems to be the direction the board's heading in. So if that is the case, then what we would be willing to do is step back, ask for a continuance, look to see if we can get the 2-bedroom done, show the board. If the board agrees that the 2-bedroom is doable, then we would withdraw the variance petition.
I think if I understood what Brian Cruz said is even if we table it, we're putting ourselves in kind of a trickier position if in 2 weeks we come back and, which we don't know for sure what's going to happen in the future despite good intentions, that puts us in a tricky spot with this application. That's my, Brian, is that a good summary? right?
Yeah,
Or-
this
or-
is all assuming that that the engineer will come back and indicate that, yeah, here, this is how it will work. Are you guys okay with this?
I'm just, sorry for doing things on the fly here, but in looking at test pit strata A, the bottom of test pit strata A is 17.5. The bottom of the system is 19.3. So that's about 1.8 feet of naturally occurring pervious material beneath that.
Sure. Yep, I understand.
So that in of itself would be grounds for a denial.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'd be grounds for us making a change.
I guess I'm going at if the whole 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and I understand, I'll get to this in a second. But at this point in time, looking at the only test pit that is within the primary area, being test pit A, with an elevation of 29.5, with pervious material beginning at 26, and then the bottom of the system shown here at 19.3, we do not have 4 feet of pervious material.
Underneath it, yep,
Right.
understood.
So this would give you a chance, if scheduling allows, to demonstrate that.
Yep, understood.
And then also, with one test pit, and we I myself understand the level of forecasting that goes into soil evaluations. The pureness of the code is 2. So, on those 2 points, there's clear citation within Title V that if the applicant didn't demonstrate 4 feet of material and provide the 2 test holes per disposal area, then they could deny that just on that alone and without worrying about the setback to the sideline of the reserve area.
I understand. Yeah, so what you're saying is that gives you the ability to deny us if we don't make good on our 2-week
Irrespective of the 3 or
timeframe
the 2.
of the variance, which keeps the board out of a tough spot. If
In
we
2
don't-
weeks,
Yeah,
in 2 weeks,
yeah.
irrespective of the 2 versus the 3.
Understood.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying, Chris, because of this, we could table because we then would, meet in 2 weeks and then deny based on that alone? Is that, and that would also, that would give the applicant some time, keep it open, but not stick us into a corner?
Correct, because the board can't even consider a variance for less than 4 feet of naturally occurring pervious material. And let me just get into why they weren't able to obtain that depth. If anyone's driven by the lot, you look at the topography out there, And, given all the resource areas, they've tried to, do the least disturbance possible, which is always the goal. To go out there and to dig a hole now to demonstrate 4 feet of pervious material below elevation 19 is going to require, not a 3 or a 5-ton excavator. It's going to require probably a 15-ton or greater excavator.
Massive.
It's going to be doing some substantial alterations, even just with the grade because of the steep ridge back.
Yeah, 100%.
But the obligation is on the applicant to do that.
Yep. Nope, understood.
But Chris, just to clarify, to be clear, they haven't asked for a variance from that requirement, so it's
That
not
is
technically in
correct.
front of the board.
That is correct.
So it's not something the board's voting on. So, honestly, given the fact that they still want to look back at the 2-bedroom issue themselves, it honestly feels like the easiest situation. If they don't want to pay for a 53G consultant, the easiest situation is to just have them withdraw it right now, and then they can go get their ducks in a row and come back and decide for themselves, do we want to fight on whether a 2-bedroom is possible? And then if that's the fight they want to have, the board can look at that. But right now, it feels like you're trying to juggle multiple options in a tight time frame under what is really just a variance application under a very narrow provision of the local requirements. And there's no prejudice to the applicant if he withdraws it and you accept a withdrawal without prejudice. And then he can just, if they decide afterwards, hey, you know what, we looked at it, Chris, we really don't think a 2-bedroom is possible. We're proceeding with a 3-bedroom variance request. They can just file it again. But this feels like trying to shift the entire concept of the application on the fly. And that really worries me from a potential litigation perspective.
And
Um,
there's no one.
Well, we'll just pause for a minute. Would you like, you haven't had a chance to speak. Would you like to speak? And please identify yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jamie.
I'm Christian Gavush Silvera with South Coast and Associates, 45 Slocum Road, Dartmouth, Mass. We would be the contractor of this if this all goes through. As for this whole thing between whether we postpone to or table this 2 weeks from now or hire a consultant or whatever it may be, we feel confident that Jamie and Zenith Land Surveyors will be able to, within the next 2 weeks, determine if a 2-bedroom system can go here. So I don't think it makes sense for us to have to go to withdraw now and then in 2 weeks from now have to reapply with all the applications, re-notify all the abutters, re-notify everyone, even though we were able to get the work done in time. I would say it would be more productive to still schedule to have this meeting in 2 weeks. And then, hey, if for whatever reason we don't make good on our word, at that time, we can then withdraw the application if that's what it means. But we all feel confident that he'll be able to have that answer between now and then. And then as for bringing in a consultant, I don't think bringing in a consultant who's going to have to familiarize themselves with this project. We have the holidays coming up. I don't think they're going to have that answer within 2 weeks. I think we'll have it a lot quicker than a consultant would, who we're now going to be bringing into this very complicated project. So that's just my 2 cents, but thank you.
Go ahead.
So, and back to David Silveris, 34 Slocum Farm Drive. I'm the applicant. The manifest unjust, I do want to look back at that as well, too. And I know the sequencing here is that you first have to prove the manifest unjust, then you'll look at it, the second component, which is the bedrooms or whatever, the variance itself. But, to me, this project is located in this green area here on the zoning map, single residence A or B or whatever it is. I don't know the last time I built a 2-bedroom house, and a manifest unjust indicates fairness, justice. Just means fairness. So what's fair is what is typical and what's common for most people. A 2-bedroom house is not common for new construction. What's typical is a 3-bedroom home or larger. So I'm kind of in that position that's manifest unjust, that we're being forced because of the stringent regulations of Dartmouth to build a house that's not common, which to me is unjust. So I want to explore that avenue with my engineer, with my attorney. And then also, if we're told at that point in time that we can't, your theory doesn't work, then we can go back to this other scenario of a two-bedroom. But, I just don't agree with the general direction of this, and I do agree with tabling this. I feel a tabling of this matter is a fair thing to do here, to give us the time to gather ourselves here. Thank you.
Jamie, did you want to say something
I
before
wanted
I
to
ask?
ask a question. So are we sure that there's no mechanism to extend the 45 days?
It's from the abutter notification, correct?
The butter
So
notification.
the statute, says, action within 45 days by the board. And that the application, by the terms in Title V, the application period starts when abutters are notified
Okay.
of the date, time, and place of the hearing. So that's it.
I'm assuming calendar days and not business
It's
days.
calendar days, not business.
Yeah, so my question is, realistically, in most Board of Healths, but in all boards, there's constructive approval timeframes and there's statutory requirements, but there's almost always a provision for an extension. The only one I'm unaware of is with an approval not required through planning board. Everything else, once you run up to the 45 days of the allotted timeframe, if the applicant's so willing, they can sign and say, we're willing to extend that timeframe. I just had to for planning board on a special permit. I'm wondering if there's a mechanism like that so that the board's not in a tough spot and that we're able to move forward and try to just get the level of comfort we need on our end.
There's no specific language in Title V. So, unless it's something that I'm unaware of, but I've never seen any language in Title V. It just says that, it goes back to the only language in Title V, excuse me, is the beginning of the application period when abutter notices are required, as being the complete application. And then it defaults back to the statute.
And is it the same if you were to write us a letter saying that, changes needed to be made to the plan? For example, the 4 feet of material, would that restart the clock? For example, you're stating a deficiency with the plan, so therefore we need to provide an updated plan, which would then warrant you having another 45 days. Does that apply? Just trying to find a way that works for everybody here without pressure on the board.
Yeah, I'm unaware.
I'm all about, finding that middle ground. But if I'm understanding Brian Cruz, who is our town council, they literally are here for the town of Dartmouth and the Board of Health. Brian, if I am, can again, you were saying that the clearest way forward is for us not to table, is that correct? Or is there anything that's since been said?
There's two options in my mind that are workable, because the one thing I don't want to have happen for you is that you show up in 2 weeks and the only additional evidence you have is now the applicant.
Oh, hold on, we can't hear you. Hold on, pause, Brian. What happened?
The case that a 2-bedroom is possible.
I'm sorry,
So-
Brian. You cut out for
Did you cut
half
out?
of
Did I
that.
cut
I do
out?
apologize.
Not a problem. I was saying the only scenario I do not want you in is in 2 weeks you come in with the applicant saying, actually, now we don't think a 2-bedroom is possible. So, and I know that everyone's talking good faith, but and about likely scenarios, but that's a possibility I have to entertain.
Yeah.
So in my mind, the two possibilities are you quickly get a board consultant determination on whether a 2-bedroom is possible, paid for by the applicant. Or they agree to withdraw the application without prejudice. The board votes on that as effectively the application decision. And then they are free to look into whatever they want. And if they decide a 2-bedroom is possible, they can then apply for that. And if they stand by their assertion that if after looking at it, they come to the conclusion it's not possible, then they can reapply for the 3-bedroom. But I have to advise against the board relying on the applicant to make the final evidentiary inquiry about whether a 2-bedroom is possible. That can't be the only information the board receives. It was fine when they were saying it was possible, because then that's evident. That's not evidence that's gonna harm the board's decision in any way. But I don't want the board in the position where in 2 weeks, the only evidence you have on the crux of the matter, which is a 2-bedroom possible, is a negative statement from the applicant. You really need some independent evidence of whether that's possible, unless the applicant's going to concede the point unequivocally now. And I know that's, it doesn't make things easy, but
Oh, pause, hold on.
I don't think you can hear us either.
Oh, really? Okay, I wonder what's,
question is that they withdraw it at this point.
I apologize, Brian,
Because
you
they-
you cut out again. I'm not sure technologically what's going on. Say,
I don't know. I'm sorry about that.
that's not your fault. Could you repeat that last part again?
Sure. That what I was saying is, if the applicant wants to be the one to do the inquiry into the definitive determination of feasibility of a 2-bedroom system, then I really feel like they need to withdraw the application without prejudice. You cannot be relying upon them to be bringing that evidence in 2 weeks as part of this application. Because if they suddenly change their mind, that puts you in an untenable situation. So the choices really are, they fund a consultant to quickly do an independent review and provide you with that analysis in 2 weeks, or they simply withdraw. You approve that withdrawal as the decision of the application. It's without prejudice, and in 2 weeks, or in a month, or whenever they decide that a 2-bedroom is possible, they file for a 2-bedroom. If they come to the conclusion it's not possible, they can always refile for the same variance, and we can start the process over with the board getting a consultant at that time. But continuing this for 2 weeks, where the only thing that's going to happen is the applicant will look into whether a 2-bedroom is possible and give you their opinion, is potentially a very problematic situation the board could find itself in. And I just can't recommend you doing that.
Brian, let me ask one clarification for Brian.
Sure.
Is there only opportunity to withdraw without prejudice now in this moment in this board meeting, or could we as a board move to get a board consultant and then they confer, have further discussions, and then decide to withdraw after?
So as long as it's something the board agrees to, votes on, and that's essentially the decision on the application, they can withdraw it without prejudice at any point. But I would, if it's not going to be now, then you do need to, I would say, vote on telling them they need to fund the consultant. And then if they refuse to fund the consultant, that could be a basis for denying the variance. But that vote needs to happen today if they're not going to withdraw. So that at least it's on the record that that's an
Oh no.
No, the video isn't on. He can't see us.
Oh, it's not. He can't even see. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I froze again, didn't I? Great.
Or one of us did.
Every time an email comes in, like maybe he's getting an email.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it decent? Okay. So I will try this again, and I apologize profusely. The board, if they're not going to withdraw today, then the board needs to vote, in my opinion, to require them to fund the board's consultant. So at least that's on the record now. And if they choose not to fund the consultant, that's a basis for denial. So conceivably, they could say, hey, we're not going to fund the consultant because we're going to go get our own confirmation. And then they could provide that confirmation to you. They never have funded the consultant. But if what they bring back to you doesn't work for you, their failure to fund the consultant is a basis for denial.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Like, at least you've put a line in the sand saying, we think you need to fund the consultant. And they could choose not to, and that would be grounds for you later to act. But it may end up being unnecessary because they're going to confirm what they think is the case, which is that a 2-bedroom is possible.
Sure.
If,
Okay, thank
if
you.
I can, I might be able to make this quick. We're
Sure.
willing to withdraw without prejudice, but we're hoping that if we do need to file for a variance again, that the fees would be waived. And we've already paid, I believe, for the application for the septic review. We're hoping that that would be waived with the submittal if we do go with a two-bedroom with a two.
I don't think I've ever been requests for fees to be waived. Is that within our purview, or is that, what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
That would be a decision of the board.
It would be a decision of the board. Okay. Precedence, have fees been waived before for folks who have resubmitted applications?
We've never found ourselves in this territory.
Oh, okay, excellent. Susan Murray,
One thing I'll add.
Sure.
Sorry to cut you off, if that's okay.
By all means.
That, part of the fee is to cover the inspection. There's a small amount of fee in the upfront, and there's a large amount of, the monies are on the backside, especially with the IA. So, we're having this discussion on the front end now. So there's a lot of funds that have been paid in for the theoretical construction of this.
so, they couldn't
So what I'm
be
saying is
reused?
that, it's, when we have not invested fully into this.
Okay,
Because it's the application fee for a subsurface sewage disposal construction permit, which is everything from the time of our work, from the time that the application hits us to when we issue the certificate of compliance.
Okay.
So beyond today, there's still a lot of work that would entail with this.
Yeah.
That if they withdraw it, will not happen, will not be borne on the town.
could we, is it too complicated if we say, if they just resubmit only fees that would then have to be redone, and then anything else could be waived? Is that getting too complicated? Does that question make
Well,
sense?
there's gonna have to be future test pits out there,
Unless we elevate
unless you
the grade.
change the grades.
Correct.
So could we, help me out here, because I want to be reasonable, but I also understand, I don't want a hardship for our agents. So, is it possible would we need to state which fees should be waived?
So right now, so if he's asked on the application fee,
Okay,
as far as the, going out in the field, that's another amount of time. But he's only asked specifically on the application fee.
okay, which includes, the staff hour payment for you folks to look over the
To do the review.
plans, which is going to happen again with another, even if they withdraw, because they would have to submit another plan, correct?
Yeah.
I want to clarify, I thought I heard a different fee too. Was it just the application fee or?
Well, there was a variance fee as well. If we file for another variance, and now, all the fees they're high. So we're hoping to, if we withdraw tonight, if we file for another variance, shortly for the same site, that the variance fee would be waived as well.
So the application fee and the variance fee?
Correct.
What does the variance fee cover for staff time, like?
So it covers, just some of the auditing, also in situations, for the new construction. It is a fee that is explicit to new construction. So, obviously, town council's on tonight.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, a fee.
Brian, do you want to weigh in on fees? Fair enough, thank you.
I do not.
Okay,
That's a local board concern. That's an administrative thing. I'm not going to tell you what to do in that scenario. That's a more practical thing. I did want to mention before I forgot,
Sure.
because it had been raised earlier regarding can we just extend this out longer than the 45 days? Chris had mentioned, there's nothing in Title V. That's correct. Additionally, the other approval processes that were mentioned, like zoning, specifically by statute, provides for a mutual extension of the deadlines by the applicant and the board. So that's a statutory process that's actually laid out. So there's nothing equivalent under Title V that I'm aware of where the board and the applicant can agree to extend the time frame before there's a constructive approval. It's a quirk of Title V, which is, gives me great concern because I don't want you guys being in a situation where you thought you agreed to an extension, but what actually happened was you basically backed yourself into a constructive approval.
sure. The last question I have for you, Chris, because I'm trying to make sure I understand. What are the downsides to us waiving the fee for him, either for precedence or for your staff?
None.
None, okay,
As far as our staff,
okay.
doesn't,
Oh, there's not a downside if we allow
not us
the
direct-
application
not us
fee?
individually.
Okay.
In our professional capacities, or, so it's.
Okay.
It's just, it's fees that the board sets as cost recovery.
Okay, okay. I think I understand then, there's not a drawback to that. So would that have to be a motion, or if my stating that, because there don't seem to be drawbacks to our staff, our agents, on waiving the application and variance fee, do I need to make that as an official motion? Because that
So-
it sounds like that's what the applicant is then basing their decision on.
It would be nice to have that as part of the record.
It would be a motion, though? Motion to waive
And
said
I would,
fees?
Madam Chair, I would actually suggest that it be part of the motion approving the withdrawal without prejudice. It'd be all one motion.
Got it.
That
All
it's,
right.
that it's a motion, that they request to withdraw, and then as part of the decision, you approve the withdrawal as the decision on the application without prejudice, allowing them to refile in the future if they so chose, and if they did file with the same exact plan in the future and the same exact variance request, then you would waive the fees for that renewed application. And that way it's all tied together, and it's clearly showing the nature of the decision on the current application.
Okay, I think I got all that. Susan Murray, do you have anything else before, hopefully? All right, I think we understand, so I think I know what happens next. Which is does the applicant withdraw and then we accept it, is that correct?
Yeah, so
Yeah, so we're officially requesting a withdrawal without prejudice, with the fees being waived for the next submittal, as discussed.
Can you name the two fees again, please?
Well, the application fees, which has multiple, I think it's
variance and.
Yeah, the variance
some
and
the-
IA component.
IA components. There's basically a checklist you guys have of fees that we go down.
So to say application fees would be, fine.
Correct.
Thank you. So then I move to approve the withdrawal without prejudice for Plat 23, Lot 48-2 at 80 Horseneck Road, Dartmouth. With the condition that if the applicant refiles, the fees are, the application fees are waived. Can I get a second?
I second that, including the variance fee.
Yes. All right, and now we vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Thank you all. Okay. Thank you very much, Brian. I'm not sure if we need Brian to stick around, but we do not?
And
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's all he was asked for.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. All right. Far past our time, but that's all right. The appointment, 4:34 PM, Charlie Min from the Seoul Kimchi Process.
Madam Chair, they've also requested to be continued to the next meeting.
Okay,
Because they have submitted some additional information that hadn't been reviewed before them.
the deadline, sure, okay. So then it's a table. Okay, so finding that one of our agents has stated that the applicant wishes for more time to gather documents, I move to table Charlie Min from the Seoul Kimchi Process.
Yeah, and also, there, it's difficult for them to also get here, so in hopes that maybe the next meeting may
It's remote.
be via Zoom,
Sure,
they would most likely be able to attend.
thank you, understood, okay.
Are these not hybrid?
They are not. This one here just happened to be because town council was going to be here.
Okay.
I did just officially make the motion, do you, should I restate it, would that be helpful?
You might want
Sure, no problem. So finding that, that our agent has heard from the applicant that they wish for more time and the possibility of a remote access, whereas this meeting is in person, I move to table the kimchi process for Charlie Min from the Soul. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, and now we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Okay.
Do we have any, I don't know if I can chime in. Is there gonna be a language issue? Do we have any precedent for, someone translating just to make sure everything gets across?
He's been in the office, I believe. Should be fine.
If there is, you just kind of maybe have to keep reiterating, some of the, your concerns, if you have any concerns, or.
I just want the owner to fully understand what's going on.
Yeah,
And I don't know if the town has anything in writing for accessibility for all people, including language accessibility.
The town does have an ADA coordinator. This is not within that realm. It is something that cities are grappling with more. I think it's something that we're going to be dealing with very soon, but we've had conversations with him, and I'm confident that
yeah, I mean,
we can.
we have had conversations, we've met with him out in the field. I don't know, we can ask him, when we, reach out to him, let him know that this is, potentially could be by Zoom, if that's what the board's, decision is going to be.
There are some electronic devices
I
that,
was going to suggest that. Could we direct you to, or, well, honestly, and I hate to say it, but even almost like a Google Translate or equivalent, and kind of maybe state that to the applicant from the beginning. If you, in his preferred language, it identifies as a he, but, okay, but do you see what I mean? If we were to say, we are going to try and speak clearly and slowly, but if you have something, you were encouraged to.
yeah, which may make it difficult. He may need to set it up on his end if there's an app, because with us on our end, I'm just not, in person, it might be easier. I think Donna's done WeChat before, but to try to do it through the remote meeting, I think, I don't know. I think,
I would hate to say that, yes, he does understand, but then after, if we're having a meeting and he doesn't.
Sure.
what we can do is just talk to him and just, if we need to see if we can work with technology for translation, then it may drive an in-person public meeting versus the remote.
Sure. Would that be helpful if we talked now about our December 17th meeting? Because is it a possibility, could we say, we'll set it for in-person, but then if he needs it Zoom?
I think the other piece was it's hard for him to make in person, so.
Right, 'cause he's
Oh,
working-
shoot.
He's working at the restaurant.
Yeah.
You're right, okay,
Somebody
yeah.
was gonna help him up to get to the Zoom links, so he could still be there at the restaurant.
Rats, yeah, I totally forgot that, okay.
Maybe, the other thing is, we could talk to him between now and then, because maybe he could have someone that could assist him.
Is there, I think,
He
is
has
it a niece or
he has a
something?
daughter-in-law that works, but that time she was saying she would be picking up her daughter from school, so by the time she gets back to the restaurant, and there may be another gentleman that also works at the restaurant, and his name is Brandon, who is gonna help possibly hook him up for the Zoom link, so maybe we could talk to Brandon to make sure that he's there, if, to do any sort of translation or to help with any sort of, question.
Yeah. Yeah, this is tricky. Yeah, I mean, I think if it sounds okay, if you folks can, communicate with him and just do your best to gauge if there's an issue, because then,
Yes, I mean, I don't know on the computer here, when his computer's up, if he can do some sort of, what do you call it,
Transcribe.
closed caption.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In his language, as
Right.
the folks are talking, it would translate into Korean for him.
sure,
I don't know if
Right.
there's an option for that.
yeah, I'm not sure either. Is that something that you could potentially explore again after speaking with the applicant?
We're gonna, go back for a reinspection at the beginning
Okay.
of December, so maybe we can just kind of schedule it with that other gentleman, Brandon, there,
Sure,
to figure out whether or not you can do the closed caption.
okay.
This here.
Yeah, does that work? Yeah, it sounds like there's not quite a,
Yeah, I mean,
official
it's hard,
process.
right? We don't wanna, undue burden on the people we're working with, and at the same time, if they're, you know, if we can somehow help with language and just to make it go smoother, but I also don't wanna make this burdensome for him if it's, if there isn't, you know, a language barrier. So it's like trying not to create problems, but, you know, it's someone's livelihood, right?
Yeah,
It's business.
right.
And I don't, you know, it's important. It's important that,
That he
Yeah.
understands, you know, if there's any, you know,
yeah.
thing that the board is gonna be requesting from him, that he understands the reason.
For sure, for sure. Okay,
All right, we'll be in touch with him.
thank you. Okay, moving on to the 4:35 PM appointment, which is the continued public hearing on the Dartmouth Board of Health well regulations. Excuse my misspeaking. Okay, so we don't have Richard Romero. We do have quorum. I do want to move forward with this. Susan Murray, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think, and I think Chris spoke to this last time. I mean, these well regulations were started before any of us came on the board. And I think, I do want to vote on them tonight. I think, you know, to a certain point, we will always be considering a lot, but I would like to move forward with discussing them and voting on them. Are you of the same opinion?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I think so. What I did is I made some notes on each of the individual comments, and then maybe what would be helpful is, because at least the first three, for example, I didn't necessarily think that we needed to take an action. So I guess ultimately what I'm saying to kind of organize this and how do we go about this is if we just go through the comments, going over anything quickly, if we seem to be in agreement, and then, you know, more likely settling on those that will need more discussion. Do you think that that's a good way of going about it? Did you have a different idea in mind? Okay. Okay. Do you have the comments in front of you if I start referencing them? Yeah, cool, awesome. So I thought that 1, 2, and 3, we didn't need any action on them. Those were my notes. On number 4, I thought accepting the edit that was suggested from the town meeting comments. Question 5, and actually I'll just pause for a second. When we, at the end of this, obviously depending on how things go, would we move to do something on comment 1, et cetera, or what do you think?
No, so what would have to happen is, let's just say, you know, and I think the item that has received the component of the draft regulations that has received the most discussion prior to the public hearing, and then during the public hearing is the forever compounds section. So if the board or a board member felt as though that they wanted that section removed, then what would have to happen is that, you know, it would be a motion to adopt the regulations as provided, accepting, and I'm just gonna, you know, section 6 point da, 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 you know, and remove those sections from the approved draft regulations.
Go ahead.
But I think to your thoughts, you have made some changes to it based on these comments, like comment 4, you removed the underground fuels, or it says underground fuel storage, and you removed the language on bulk storage for pesticides and herbicides. So do we need to approve those changes?
So if the board so moves, yes, so that is the board's decision. So, you know, that's why this was a very different way in which we've done regulations. Every board is different, every board member is different. We're agents of the board. So, you know, having been involved with numerous public hearings with the state, you know, I learned something from that. And I said, maybe we should be following some of what the state's doing. They don't do it quite like this. They push that out after the fact. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but every comment made at a state public hearing has to be addressed as part of the final adoption of the regulations.
Okay.
And with that being said, they'll consolidate and batch and then paraphrase. So someone may, repeatedly say, I think a 100-foot buffer zone is too much for a wetland, and I want it down to 20 feet. And, 50 people may say it, but in different verbiage. That's all going to get consolidated into one single comment in the final presentation of comments and responses. So I've done that here as well, because we did receive, especially on the forever compounds, we did receive feedback from the audience at the hearing several times. And for example, with the fuel storage tanks, that was, I think, mentioned by just one member of the public. So when I presented that, and I found reason that, well, and then talking to colleagues and state agencies, that's where I said, well, it's ultimately, these are the board's regulations. I provided that language in there to help you make your decision whichever way you'd like. Is that clear, or am I just kind of staying too in my lane?
Maybe another way of asking, if I may, is if we as a board are in agreement, when we come to make our final motion tonight, if we are so moved, can we say, can we, instead of batching them together in just one sentence, are we able to instead, just for organizational purposes, we say accept the edits in public comment number 4 and number 7 or whatever, or do you need us to actually state what they say?
Yeah, I would,
Yeah.
and just,
Okay,
to make sure that we're bulletproof, and we don't create any confusion down the line, there's two things that I'm thinking of. The
Okay.
first would be is to cite the treaty of everything, and by treaty is like the laundry list of items that you want removed.
okay,
The second, if you want to adopt tonight. The other alternative would be is that you give me direction on, these are the sections that, the board at this time is in agreement that we would like to see removed. I will remove those from the draft and present that to the board at the next meeting, for which you could just make a simple motion.
oh, okay, so we wouldn't necessarily vote on them tonight, because we would just take the,
And I think
The
that would be,
cleaning.
I think that would be the cleanest way of doing it,
Sure.
unless you want to spend a long time reciting.
no, I understand, that makes sense. I understand.
But we would have to direct you to remove which.
And you could do that by the comments. You could say,
That's what we could
remove
say,
the
number 4.
section on
Okay.
fuel storage tanks, as you noted in comment. I'm going to use letters, just so that it doesn't look like I'm trying to be directing. A. And let's just say that pertains to the bulk storage for pesticides. And then so that'll consolidate your motion, and then it'll make the approval of the regulations, the decision to approve or deny the regulations at the next meeting easier.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So then, is there anything else you want to note before, I think that we'll go through whichever ones and then discuss them out as need be? Sound good? Okay. So, I didn't think that we would need to take, action on 1, 2, or 3. I thought just, those are fine. For 4, I thought we would accept the edit, which is omit the language and the draft regulations on the bulk storage for pesticides and herbicides. Okay?
So omit 4?
Yes, and if it helps, I mean, I wrote notes on this too, okay.
Yep.
Sure, yep, yes, accept the edit in 4.
Accepting your omission.
Your suggestion for editing, which is to omit the language in the draft regulations. I can give this to you after if you want, okay.
I'm good.
Cool, all
Thank you.
right, no problem. On 5, I wasn't sure if you had more, if you wanted to weigh on this more, yeah.
I mean, I like, where does the 500 feet come from? Is there some scientific study that shows 500 feet is like, I know, I mean, that's kind of an onerous thing to say, but, do we have any data on, I guess, how far leachate travels, or if this is, I just don't want this to be a very onerous, I get there's some bad actors, right? But there's also some people doing some good composting and with small, obviously I'm thinking agricultural, which is like where a lot of the exceptions are in the composting universe. You know, farmers can get away with a lot more. That's not the right way of saying it. But, you know, farming on small acreage would, you know, if a farm needs a well and they're also composting, say my farm, composting chicken manure, I don't think there's a place on the, you know, it would make it very difficult to find a place to compost and a place to have a well if there's a 500-foot. And to be far enough away from abutters and just like we're functioning on smaller spaces. So I'm just really curious. And I get that you know, in your comments that it's not, it is a problem and it's not well regulated.
So where that came from, so MDR is not charged with protection of the public health of the environment. You know, I've spent a lot of time diving into the mandate with the provision in statute to create the agricultural demonstration program, DEP's mandate, and looking at the regulations that we have here in the Commonwealth for composting versus what other states have, Long Island, New York, Maryland, I think Alabama, just to name a few. Some of those states have composting regulations that are promoting of composting while at the same time being protective of the environment and the public health. And they require, so the concern with this, when we create a setback, is a pollutant. And in those states, they have requirements for the management of leachate. Massachusetts, we have 0 requirements. So some states have, you know, 300-foot setbacks. Some have 2. So I'm going to jump on this. A composting facility where at a farm where someone's just, you know, actively managing manure does not necessarily require an MDR registration. When you get that MDR registration or a general permit from DEP, that opens you up to do a lot more. Now you can take in.
I think I can end this.
Okay.
So you're talking about only MDR composting facilities, not I'm composting
Not
my
a backyard
own stuff.
composting.
Okay.
So under 310 CMR 16.03, there are exemptions. And within those exemptions, it allows for still moderate scale composting that is completely exempt. We wouldn't even touch that. And it even allows you to bring in a certain small tonnage per week, which is still,
Yeah.
so that's
But
all
it's only
exempt
if
from.
it's used on farm, you can't sell it. Those are all under the exemption.
Yeah.
So this 500, and so how would, I mean, I guess it wouldn't even come into but you go to inspect to see like, oh, the well is where you say it's gonna be, like you've done your due diligence and you see a compost pile, are you gonna say, if you're on site, oh, we can't do this
It would
here?
have to be an MDR, or it would have to have an official approval
Okay, so it's only for MDR approved composting facilities?
or general permits, DEP general permits.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know, again, totally out of the blue, but do you know roughly how many of those exist in town?
We've seen a retraction on those because of some unfortunate circumstances. But that, unfortunately, insofar as it involved a lot of government resources. So at this point in time, I am only aware of an agricultural operation, 2 agricultural operations in the far south end of town by MDR, and 1 operation that's transitioning from MDR to DEP. At one point, about 10 years ago, I believe we had maybe upwards of 8 operations.
Okay.
And as a result of some coordinated efforts, some of those operations have surrendered their permits, or one surrendered a permit, the other one was not renewed by MDR, and they're not operating at this time.
Okay.
Some of the others have just kind of fallen off the wayside.
Okay, that, I can be okay with that, knowing that it's not, I mean, basically, I'm worried about someone trying to do the right thing with manure management, but they're also up against needing to new well, and they're like conflicted.
And with the incident up in Westminster with the Forever compounds, so how far do certain compounds travel? That is just way beyond the 500.
Right.
So, even a 500 wouldn't have protected there.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at is there was at a public hearing a number of years ago regarding the MDR composting regulations. There was some interesting testimony by a person, and he had a science background, who lived next to an operation, and he alleged that he had data that demonstrated that once that operation started, that he steadily saw an increase in tannins in his drinking water well.
I mean, leaf matter,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, okay. I think I can, I'm okay with this one.
So we just take note, we leave as is, we don't direct Chris to take any action.
Correct.
Yeah, I definitely differ. I like enjoying listening to that, and I will go along with that too. Number 6, I underline that to reserve this comment for future consideration for threshold and goes for a minute. Let me, I guess, unless you understand the suggestion, suggest to the board to reserve this comment for future consideration so as to not delay the updating of potability standards in Dartmouth. So you're saying we accept that they said this, but keep the wording in there for the threshold yield in gallons per minute of well depth.
I think this was, if I remember, like I was asking about this, and that was, I think it was more my not understanding the functionality of gallons per minute and
Yeah.
hydrofracking. So if this is in response to like some of the questions I was asking, I'm okay. They were really clarification questions.
Okay. So then no action there. Okay. Number 7, I think I wrote accept the edit to remove subsection C, which is the suggestion. Due to advancements in pressure tanks. Are you okay with that? Excellent. Okay. Does that make sense to you too?
Yes.
Excellent. 8, comment on testing requirements. PFAS is number 9 is what I wrote. So hang on, let me just refresh my memory on comments 8 and 9. So comment on testing requirements in section 9. Okay, yeah, all new wells should be tested for this, okay. And so the response was, this section was inserted into the draft in response to an issue we saw many years ago, and when we had more I'm on, that was 7, I apologize. 8, testing requirements in this section is based on the initial testing requirements for anthropogenic sources of contamination. If a detection occurs and exceeds groundwater standards, then the applicant needs to come back to the board with a proposal, okay. And the board can condition that proposal, including post-filtration tests. So I think that's okay. I understand my own notes now. So because, I think I was leaning toward leaving this one because it allows some flexibility for the owner to then kind of come forward with a proposal, which does not require the post-filtration test. I think that seemed to be my understanding. What are your thoughts on this one?
Vaguely remembering.
Okay, I
the
know,
conversation.
I know. But that's,
But I thought this, if I remember correctly, like you said, it left some more flexibility in it and was better
yeah,
with that.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, having that, so if someone were to test and find it, find something, then we would, we have that ability to
Correct.
entertain.
Yeah, and I really like that, the way it works, because it gives the person, you demonstrate to us that's working, so you put it in. If, let's just say you have TCE, trichloroethylene in there, probably gonna be a carbon filter that you install. They're gonna, purchase a carbon filter, probably have some extensive conversations with DEP, hopefully things work. We do have a few of those in town serving that very purpose, and then they demonstrate it to us. The alternative is that they would, if we didn't require the testing, they wouldn't know that they're drinking it, but they'd be exposed to it. We're not condemning the law outright, saying, they do have that option to put it in there.
Okay.
So,
So then, yeah, so then no action, we just leave it as is.
Yeah.
Right, okay, excellent. So that's 8. All right, PFAS. I think, do you want me to go first? So I think, I go back and forth on this one so much, but I think ultimately what I was waiting for was for these public comments, and we heard on them, which is, they are ubiquitous. So at this moment, I am of the opinion, again, knowing too that we can't edit without going back to Ag Commission, et cetera. I think I'm of the opinion that we remove them at this time, but then we can bring them in at a future point, especially because from everything I understand, the science is changing quickly for it. So that is where I stand.
That's where I stand.
Okay. So does that make sense? We'll omit, and then,
Leaving the PFAS requirement.
okay. And then 10, comment on testing requirements for agricultural suitability. Can I bounce to you on this one? What are your thoughts? Testing, irrigation.
I get the answer, but I'm not sure I remember the specific question, and it may have even been my specific question.
And I think this probably kind of got a little bit co-mixed, but it wasn't clear from the audience. I know there was some comment on that from the audience. And I think the concern was about the whole PFAS component.
Right.
So I did segregate this into its own question.
Got you. Because this is, the water we use for irrigation and for washing is regulated by the FDA through FSMA. So, and that is theoretically controlled by MDR. And so there are people that are considered exempt, and they've weakened the testing rules, but they still exist, that everyone's gonna have to come into compliance on the water rules, and it's constantly changing as well. Like, I think they've put out the final rule, but all water used on a farm, on a vegetable farm, falls under FDA regulations.
This would apply to even, let's say, not just, produce, but if someone was putting a well in to, fill a stock tank.
Right.
And if the PFAS are removed, what we would be looking to test would be, standard potability, as well as the Recrometals 8 and the VOCs.
Right.
If I have to pull a number out right now and say, what do I think the total cost of that package would be, standard potability, Recro 8 metals, and VOCs, to make sure I have a little bit of wiggle room in it, you know, I don't think it's gonna exceed $650.
Isn't that part of the testing you do once you get a well, though?
If you do agriculture right now, none.
Oh, my well was I had one in town that was done.
It should,
And it-
ideally, but
It was part of the well drillers, what he did is he tested it. And then, but he submitted that as part of the paperwork to the town too, I thought. Like, he considered
if he
it
did, it
part
was
of.
optional.
Okay, okay. And this would be a one-time,
Right, so, you know, sometimes I've heard some comments about, should we require annual testing, or should we require testing at point of property transfer? I believe that those sorts of governmental endeavors should be statewide and not local. It makes it too hard for compliance. So this would only be at the time of installation. After that, we know that well water constituents can change, but we just don't have the government resources to
Right.
police that.
so remind me again what they would be testing for.
They would be doing standard potability, which would be, the big ones in standard potability are gonna be your bacterial, your pH, and nitrates,
Right.
excuse me. And then on the RECRA 8, those are your 8 metals that are problematic. That's gonna be like lead, for example, chromium.
Right,
On your VOCs, we state the methodology, the EPA methodology. It's your 24 most common VOCs, one of which is, TCE. It's chlorinated solvent. Many communities, Westport, we got a small area, we're familiar with it. Years ago, the Cape Cod base. And that'll be just testing for those.
okay. I'm okay with it. I mean, I thought, yeah,
And a lot of other communities have this, VOCs in as a baseline.
right. And so if it comes back testing positive for any of these, they would have to remediate.
That's correct. And they would come back during that separate process where they'd have to come back in and demonstrate to us.
Right.
The good thing is I believe that the most common VOCs are addressed through carbon filters. Metals, we haven't had to address that, fortunately, and hopefully we never do.
Okay.
So are you okay to leave that as is then and take no
Yeah.
action? Okay. That is the last of the comments. So I think we addressed everything, right? Linda, number 10 is what I have. Okay. Is that clear to you?
Yes.
Do you, what should we do as a board? It would be then a motion to take the action we just discussed on the comments, or do you need me to reiterate it?
You could just say, you could just list the comments.
Okay.
And just say, comment 4, comment,
Sure,
and
yep,
just the sections of the regulations within comment 4, such and such and such and such, strike those from the draft and present the revised draft at the next meeting.
okay. Okay, so then before I make that formal motion, because once I make it, I just want to make sure. So here's what I wrote. I have 1, 2, and 3, no action. 4 is accept the edit. To omit the language in the draft regulations on bulk storage for pesticides and herbicides. 5 and 6 are no action. 7 is to accept the removal of subsection C. 8 is no action. 9 is to remove PFAS, forever chemicals, from the regulation. And 10 is no action. So essentially, I wouldn't say anything about, in the motion, about the no action ones. I would say accept edits, remove, et cetera, and present them, the new well regulations at the next meeting. Does that match what you have? Okay. All right, so, I guess finding the in-depth discussion, I move to direct our Board of Health staff to make the following edits on the Dartmouth Board of Health private well supply regulations, with, based on public comment number 4, to omit the language in the draft regulation on bulk storage for pesticides and herbicides. On public comment number 7, to accept the suggestion to remove subsection C. And then, based on public comment number 9, to remove references to forever compounds commonly called PFAS. And then after doing these edits, to provide the Board of Health with an organized draft of the well regulations at the next Board of Health meeting. Can I get a second?
A second.
All right, now we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Excellent, okay. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, section 2, new business. Item A, Vice Chair Richard Romero resignation. We can proceed on this even though he's not here, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you want to speak on this, Chris?
Sure.
Go ahead. I'm going to pick up my pen, sorry.
So the organization of the town's multi-member boards is governed by the town charter. The town charter does have provisions when a member of the Board of Health, the town bylaws also have terms for eligibility to serve on a public body, which, is the cause for Mr. Romero's resignation, because he's moving. So he has submitted his resignation. The charter then provides that the Board of Health, upon the vacancy of a member, has 30 days to notify the Select Board of the vacancy. If the Board of Health does that, then at a point in the future, the Select Board will call for a joint meeting of the Board of Health and the Select Board to then appoint a new member to the Board of Health for the remainder of the election cycle. So the remaining board members need to notify the Select Board. So that's where the language is a little confusing. Because, and that's why we have this on the agenda. Because to me, it implies that it's a joint action, and that in order for you to act jointly, you're acting in quorum, and that's why it's on our agenda tonight. So if the board wishes to be part of the process for the selection of the appointed Board of Health member to fill out the remainder of Mr. Romero's election cycle, this election cycle, and what I mean by that is April of 26. His term ends in April of 27, so whoever is selected will serve until April of 26, would have to run, and then they will serve out the remainder of the term, which is a year, and they'll have to run again in 27.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah. So they're gonna have to continue to run. So they will, whoever gets appointed will have to pull papers and run at the April election. They're only appointed until the next election.
Oh, I think that's a piece I was missing. I thought they were appointed to finish out the term.
No.
No.
But they don't pull papers after they get appointed. They just do it to fulfill that last year of Richard Romero's term.
So someone could just say, hey, you know what, I'll fill in until, but, after that, it's gotta go, Ian, we've encountered this situation at least twice. Historically, people that have been appointed to serve on the Board of Health have typically proceeded to run for the balance of the term and then run for subsequent terms.
I just thought of this, could theoretically then, someone could choose, because my term is up,
Right, so
In
we'll
this.
have 2 members up in April.
yes. So theoretically, no, I'm not going to go down that road. Never mind. Okay.
So if the Board of Health does not notify the Select Board, then the Select Board would meet individually and appoint the next member.
Okay.
I would like to be a part of that decision.
I agree. So then it sounds like we would make a motion for our remaining members, excuse me, us, to send notice of the vacancy to the select board with the help of our agents.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be a simple.
And we would sign it probably. And he should include his last day of eligibility in that letter.
I believe he did,
or-
it was December 1st.
Okay, I'm sorry, we would include that in our letter, okay. I think that's what we do, okay. So then, I move for the, finding that Richard Romero has, indicated that he is moving, which, makes him ineligible based on residency requirements. I move, for the remaining Dartmouth Board of Health members to, send a notice of vacancy containing his, last day being eligible through its Board of Health agents. Can I get a second? Excellent. All right, and now we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Excellent. Okay. Donna, you said that the next business to new business, item B, is 158 Little River Road, plat 15, lot 44, new construction. Donna, would you like to speak on this, or can I reiterate that? Go ahead.
So we received an email from the engineer Giorgetti this morning requesting that the board table the discussion on rescinding the grant unrestricted covenant. He's spoken with the owners of the property and the realtors, and they would like to revisit the design
Okay.
and come back at the next board of health meeting.
Okay. And there's not an issue with that? We don't have the same sort of timeline issues that we talked about earlier?
So the question becomes, when was that plan submitted?
The original plan was received on the 12th and revisions received on the 17th.
12th of November? So we would be good.
Okay. Okay, great. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, so finding that the applicant has reached out to one of the Board of Health agents requesting more time, I move to table 158 Little River Road, plat 15, lot 44. Can I get a second?
Second.
Now we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Okay. Fee schedule for Title V. Sorry, Section 2, new business, item C, fee schedule for Title V. Would you like to take this, Chris, to start us off?
Sure, thank you. So we have a very exhaustive fee schedule. The purpose of fees, as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, is not to generate profit. It is merely its cost recovery for services of the town. What I mean by cost recovery is that, you got a big town, there's a lot of need for administration of regulations that have been bestowed upon various aspects of government divisions, Board of Health, for example, and that in order to be the third party to the public to protect the public health, we have things like permitting for restaurants or permitting for subsurface sewage disposal construction permits. And with that, we are allowed to charge a fee. And the fee has to be commensurate with the expected services that would go into it. Now, the services that go into it are not necessarily at face value. There are other things that we're looking at. So it's not like we just do a straight hourly rate. It's actually a multiplier. And that multiplier is based on things like benefits, for example. So with that being said, I've gone into our Title V section of our fee schedule and looked to not only consolidate it, but to look at what our rates are and what the cost of services are, and to update that. At the last meeting, we removed that $50 fee, and the board directed to go, as response to that removal of the $50 fee for the annual filing, we would take a look at the overall fee structure within the Title V section. And we've made some adjustments there. particularly, for example, with the IA systems, we're gonna reverse from annual filings of $50 to an upfront fee. And that's in the attachment for the board. So what I did is I just kind of put what the proposal is in red, if there is a change.
Sure, I think I'm of the opinion, I trust your professional judgment. I think if, everything gets a little bit more expensive over time and you have to keep up. So I don't think I had any questions on any particular fee. Well, I'll ask that question. I'll bounce to Susan Marie first. What are your thoughts, questions, concerns?
I just for my own clarification, I was a little confused on the septic subsurface sewage disposal construction permit fee application, which was 180, going to, maybe I'm not reading it right. It's an additional.
The first
540
page?
Oh, sorry, page 2, top.
Page 2, top, okay.
I guess I don't fully understand, there's a $180 fee, but an additional 540, and so you want to restructure, so it's just 500?
That's the innovative alternative septic systems.
But I see what she means though. So you name 180 here. And then the fee at this time is in addition to the.
Yep, I was right, on the 180.
Okay.
And pressure distribution. So right now we charge, so the black is, we charge 180. So the 180 is a la carte. So that's why I did that additional verbiage in black, which probably made things confusing. So what I'm proposing is just to strike that 180 and bump it to 500 for the IA systems. They would still, and it's still a la carte. And we're doing that 500 because at the last meeting, rather than paying $50 in perpetuity, they're
Right.
paying a base up front
Okay,
for our
so
management in
what's,
perpetuity.
what's the 540 or 450 application fees below?
So, yep, so the 540 so that's the subsurface, so like I mentioned, the a la carte, so you're gonna pay the base price of the 540, the application fee.
Right,
And then if you're putting IA system in, you're paying 500 on top of that.
okay. And that's instead of paying, so if you have it for 20 years, great, you've kind of won out. But if you have it for under 10 years, you're actually paying a little bit more, but it's averaging out.
And these systems here, these IA advanced treatment units are, so far we haven't, the only ones that we've seen removed in town is when sewer came in.
I was gonna say, if you have a septic system for less than 10 years, you got bigger issues than than not getting your money back on a fee.
Right. Well, I mean, if you move, right, and you didn't get the benefit of the.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
So sorry.
Go ahead.
So I look at it as when we charge a fee, especially when it comes to like a fee for a property improvement that affects whether it be public safety or public health or, so whether it's a building department fee for a new house, a board of health fee for a septic system, a conservation filing fee, that fee, while it's borne by the applicant, is for the benefit of the people.
Yeah,
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, okay, it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
And then, that's not associated with the variance table though, right? That,
We're kind of consolidating the variance table because there's a lot in there, and we're gonna just bring it down to one variance fee.
so
And-
everything's gonna be 360,
Yes,
just straight
Yeah.
across the board, okay.
yeah, and we're gonna strike out sub-metering, so I know you gave me the directive on just Title V,
Yeah,
but it was hard to just go into Title V because we had that variance. I said, this is the opportunity to straighten out the mess in variances. We're not allowed to charge for sub-metering, and we haven't been because we're not allowed to, so.
submetering,
So sub-metering, a number of years ago, as part of an initiative by landlords, a bill
right, no,
was.
I
yeah.
get it, yep,
So it now allows a landlord to charge tenants for water and sewer, provided that they submit a form to the Board of Health. and say that all the fixtures are low-flow fixtures. This fee predates my time, it was something that was put in, but yeah, there is a little bit of services that we provide, but we don't have a regulation that says that we're allowed to charge.
Okay,
That's why I'm removing it from there.
okay. Okay.
Okay. So then, if it sounds like Susan, Murray, and I are in agreement, it would be a motion to accept the proposed fees, is that correct? Or accept the proposed fee schedule as outlined? Okay. Okay, I feel like my brain. Okay. Finding that any questions have been answered by the Board of Health and there aren't any concerns, I move to accept the fee schedule for Title V as outlined. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, now we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Yes, Chris?
So, before we close out this topic.
Okay.
It's been a number of years since we've gone into our fee schedule. We should be updating it from time to time as costs of the town for services goes up. And also look for, consolidation. It is ridiculous. I think we've got it on legal size and it's probably like 8 font. If the board would like, I think to try to tackle our fee schedule entirely is exhaustive, but if we could kind of pick away at it bit by bit, would be helpful. So if the board would like to direct, and it wouldn't need to be a vote, it could just, that at a meeting in the next 60 days, 60 to 75 days, we could present another category of changes. And my recommendation would be food service, since that's the biggest.
Sure, I absolutely think that makes sense. I know I write a bunch of documents for work, and it's amazing how fast the time goes by, and then you need to change things and update them. Great, so then yes, you have the directive from the Board of Health to please continue to look into the fee schedule, and if it is convenient to go next with food safety inspections.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, now we're moving on to section 3, which is old business, which item A, the next Board of Health meeting to be determined in person or Zoom. And as a reminder, the next Board of Health meeting is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025 at 4:30 p.m. I think because we want to make sure that at least one of our applicants has access, it should be Zoom or remote. You okay with that? Yep. Excellent. We don't need a motion on that. Correct?
No.
Okay. All right, that's section 3. Section 4 is any item not known 48 hours in advance. Chris, do you have anything?
Nothing.
I think the only thing I have to say, and he's not here, but we typically thank our members when it is their last meeting. So Richard Romero is not here, but for the time that I've served with him, I have appreciated, his open-mindedness and his willingness to listen and to serve. So I thank him, even though he is not here.
I second that. I appreciate his thoughtfulness.
For sure. Do you have anything for, any item not known 48 hours in advance? Okay, excellent. Well, it is 6:49 p.m. again on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and I move to adjourn the Dartmouth Board of Health meeting. Can I get a second? All right, we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. We are adjourned.